In this video, I want to talk about travelling abroad for medical treatments when you have ME-CFS. This is something that I have now done twice. A couple of years ago, I went to Germany for the blood washing procedure apheresis, and right now I am in Romania as of the last week for hyperbaric oxygen. But travelling abroad with ME-CFS comes with a lot of challenges and anxieties. And for those of you who may be considering treatments abroad but are very nervous about it, I wanted to share my experience to see if there could be something in it that may be helpful for you. But first, my name is Patrick Usher and I am author of the book Understanding ME-CFS and Strategies for Healing, in which I break down some of the latest breakthrough research into ME-CFS that can explain the whole illness, and in which I share treatment strategies that I have tried in order to improve my condition. The links for that book are down below. Now, the fact of the matter is that in the first few years of having ME-CFS, travelling abroad for treatments was not possible. I was too ill for that. My life was really very limited. I was essentially housebound. I might have been able to do a 5-minute walk outside the house, but I was kind of between housebound, often bedridden if I crashed for several days, and basically it would not have been possible to take on such a trip. I did do travel between my apartment in Ireland and my dad in France over that time, but that was just changing location. It was never easy, but I would kind of get through it. However, a couple of years ago, I was feeling quite desperate. I had made progress, but it was still quite clear how terribly far I had to go. And I wondered if I had the microclots problem that had been talked about a lot. And I decided that that was the time to go to Germany to a dialysis centre in order to treat those using apheresis. And as it happened, I did indeed have a lot of microclots. You can see my blood on the left there, totally black, so turgid and condensed thanks to all the clots. And on the right, you see my blood after 7 apheresis treatments, which removed the microclots and got my blood flowing better again. So that was great, and it was a successful trip from that point of view. However, it did come with challenges and anxieties. When I first accepted the treatment schedule in Germany, I became extremely anxious because I had not been able to really do anything like that in many years. Basically, every fear under the sun would come to me. What if the travel was too much? What if the treatment is too much? What if I worsen and I'm in a foreign land and I don't really speak the language very well? What if I worsen and I can't get back? What if I can't keep up with the housework in the apartment? What if the Airbnb host gets angry with me? So all kinds of things that come up. I think that, for any ME-CFS patient watching this, you'd understand these kinds of anxieties. But ultimately, what it comes down to is something that I call the jump. When you are going through life, you get into a routine, you have what's familiar and comfortable for you, but then when you're suddenly going to change things, there's this moment that arrives where you actually have to decide to jump into the unknown and just see what happens. And you might land with both feet, you might land with 1 foot or half a foot or 1.5 feet, whatever. It's only through the process of actually jumping that you find out what will happen. You will live your way into the answers. And the actual truth of the matter is you don't know. You don't know. There's no way of knowing. Things could be disastrous. You could have a bad reaction to the treatment. You might not be able to cope with the aftermath of it. Something else might go wrong. And when I went to Germany, although the trip was overall very positive, I was there for 3.5 months, and the treatments were good, I had some really, really hard times there. I had 2 nights of total insomnia, where I didn't sleep at all because I was too ill, and that was horrible. I had other episodes of really difficult post-exertional malaise where I was so breathless that I could not hardly get around the apartment, and on one of those occasions I was in that situation and I had to pack up and leave because I was changing my accommodation. So there were some really difficult times. But what I found is that I was more resourceful than I knew. So even though I was in this new and unfamiliar situation, more inner strength to meet it than I realized. But it was thanks to making the jump and actually getting there and seeing that, I can adapt to this and I can manage these challenges, that I was able to grow in confidence and actually see that things were possible. But the key is, if the treatment is something you believe in, and it's something that you think it is worth taking the risk in order to get the benefit, then the thing to do is to have the jump and trust yourself that you will actually be able to adapt. Now there's one caveat with that, which is that I think that, well, at least from my perspective, a certain level of functionality is important before attempting something like this. So when I was back living at 2,000 steps a day, 1,500 steps a day, I would not have done something like this. I do not think it would have been wise. If I'd had a carer who would come with me, someone who was looking out for me, looking after me, yeah, maybe in that circumstance. But if you're travelling alone and you have to manage everything yourself, I think a certain level of functionality is very important. So when I went to Germany, I was capable of doing 4,500 to 5,500 steps per day. I had improved quite a lot. And this meant that I was out of that situation where any old thing could crash me. Going up the stairs slightly too quickly, in bed for a week. Changing direction slightly too quickly, in bed for a week. Lifting shopping bags, etc. Those kinds of things no longer crash me. Really, it was more if I went for too long a walk, or if I did some physio exercises too much, those things would bring me down. From my perspective, a certain level of functionality is important. So in the end, with my German trip, I was really proud of myself that I was able to go and actually manage, and I gained a lot of confidence from that. And after that, I went on other bigger trips, not for medical treatments, but to have independent stretches of living in French villages, small towns, and also big cities, including Toulouse and Bordeaux. Now, again, there, each time I had to jump, and sometimes it went reasonably well. There was no real disasters, there were difficult times, but it was okay. And on another occasion, when I was in Toulouse, it went really wrong, and I was very ill for the second half of the trip, and I just had to come home. But ultimately, even if I were well and I'm going somewhere else, it's still a jump into the unknown, and things could still go wrong. And this is just part of life. The problem is that when you have ME, there's so many more things that can go wrong that we create a lot more anxious thoughts around what-if scenarios when it comes to travel. So now we come to my present trip to Romania, and I want to just compare and contrast with my trip to Germany of 2 years ago. I was nervous about this trip, but the level of anxiety was much less. And this is because I have gained a lot of confidence doing the jump over the last couple of years. I have also been a lot less nervous about the treatments. Yes, going into my first treatment a few days ago, I was scared. I didn't know what to expect, and my first instinct was to just run away from the chamber. I have a certain capacity now more just to get on with it and trust the process. When I was in that plane landing in Romania, coming down and looking at the terrain outside, I had to pinch myself. This would have been impossible a few years ago. And even though my life is constrained and limited here, it is such a joy to be able to do this. It is so exciting to be able to see a new environment, to hear a different language, to make a complete fool of myself trying to speak the language. And there's something really exciting just about the newness when life has been quite sort of stale for a long time. I find that now I have more trust in myself that I can manage, that I can meet challenges that come to me. So those are just some thoughts on travelling abroad for medical treatments. Basically, I would say if you have a carer, someone looking out for you and after you, then it makes sense to potentially go for a treatment if you really believe in it, even if you are less functional. If you are travelling alone, for me personally, I think you want to have a certain level of functionality first. And really, I think the most important thing is if you believe in the treatment, if there's a good rationale for why it might help you, then understand that there will be all these anxieties that come up. Do your due diligence in preparing for the trip and researching how you'll manage when you're there. But basically what it comes down to is the jump. You take that leap and you trust that your feet will land and that you will be able to manage, even though almost certainly there will be difficulties when you're there. But hey, you've got through plenty of those already. So that's it for this video, and let me know if you have travelled abroad for treatments in the comments. Let me know how that went for you and what kind of tips you would share for people considering doing that. I'll see you in the next video.